What is up, Orlando Magic community? What's up, second cousins? It's your boy Kyle, the Red Lettuce here. Happy to be with that man, second cousin, friend of the show, Jay. Man, it's been a minute. We've been on a little bit of a hiatus. I've been in a cave ever since the Magic left the playoffs. How you been, man? What's good with you?
Yeah, man. Everything's been good, man. I'm excited to see you. You said red lettuce. I want to say it's Jay Florin, the green lettuce, but nah, man, we good. Everything's been good, man. You know, I'm glad to be having a conversation with you. Just talk a little bit of basketball. Just trying to keep myself sane till we come back.
It's definitely a little bit of the desert now that the finals are over. Did you watch a lot of the playoffs and finals at all?
I watched every bit of it, and man, it was tough to watch. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Why? What was tough about it? Just not your team, the Magic not being in it?
I mean, of course, right? We're
Yeah.
gonna but outside of just being a Magic fan, I'm also a huge basketball fan, and I just think that the finals kind of like for it to go down the way that it did, like.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like the Magic, social media and be like, congratulations to the Celtics. Like, no. I'm glad I'm glad that like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum finally can like shut some of the critics out, whatnot, because
Right.
I know that's gotta be super annoying to deal with. But dude, I'm upset that the Dallas Mavericks didn't like help Luka, bro. Like a lot of people, he was getting a lot of bad rep because saying that like, oh, he's not playing the way he needs to, and it's like, dude, when you have guys that are on your starting team, on your starting lineup, and in a finals game, whether it's the NBA Finals or the East or West Coast Finals, and your starters finish the game with 0 points,
Oh, there was a
bruh,
Gary Harris line?
bruh. But
Who had the Gary Harris line? Was it Matthews? Wes
it
Wes
was
Matthews Jr.? No, who plays for them now? Is
no.
it Nick Hardaway? Nick Hardaway
Dude,
Jr.?
it was several games where they had like 0 impact period. Like they
Yeah.
had multiple Gary Harris game. PJ Washington and Derrick Jones.
Yeah. Derrick Jones just has no business being in a starting lineup. They're definitely not near the team that the Celtics are. I didn't watch barely any of it, to be honest with you. I watched the first half of one of the games of the finals, and it was a blowout. I'm like, this shit is boring, and I moved on. I don't know. I consider myself a basketball fan, but being so deeply invested in the Magic now and doing the podcast and stuff, man, when the Magic went out, I just kind of took a step back and I honestly didn't want to watch basketball for a little bit.
I haven't
really been on
like
social media. I just kind of enjoyed something different. And with the Celtics winning, who are even my B team, but I didn't even care to watch, it's nice for us as Magic fans because the comparison is very relevant and apparent when you look at their two best players in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and our two best guys in Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. The skill sets are kind of similar. These big guys, these wing players who can do a little bit of everything and have carried the Celtics to the promised land. Now, the challenge before the front office for us, Anthony Parker and Weltman here, is to construct the team in a way around those two guys where us Magic fans can be having a parade in Orlando, and you bet your bottom dollar I'll be there when there is a parade. I'm freaking coming down. I don't care when it is. But that's what's exciting. And I wanted to get on to talk with you and the Magic community, second cousins out there, about the draft coming up Tuesday, right? Tuesday, Wednesday? Yeah, Tuesday is the first day. They're doing 2 days now.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 days. So I believe it's Tuesday and Wednesday. And we do have a second round pick. Who the heck knows what happens with that? But the big one is
Cash
the 18th pick. Cash considerations, exactly. Get your logo, get your images ready. Cash considerations coming to Orlando. But now is that time, Jay, where we got to think about what do you do in the draft, what do you do in free agency as things are moving along. So you want to just get right into it with draft talk and some of the needs that we see for the Orlando Magic?
Yeah, man. Let's
All
get
right.
it.
Go for it, man. Well, I mean, I think the needs are pretty apparent, but I'll let you say what you think the front office should be looking for in this draft.
Okay. So obviously, right, like you said, the needs are pretty apparent. If they, for some whatever odd reason, if they think that their needs don't line up with what everybody else thinks, I mean, it's kind of wild, right? But so we need shooters, right? We need shooting. There was a little bit of like talk towards the end of the season where it was like, oh, Jeff Weltman is not going to go out and get shooters because we have apparent shooting on the team. It just needs to get developed, i.e., Gary Harris, Jet Howard, everybody, all the numbers or whatever. But I guess the complication around that realistically is like we don't have a guy that's like dedicated, like we thought we did, right? And Caleb Houston and all these things, but even when he started playing in that in some of those games towards the end, like all he had to do, and he was just coming out there cold. He was just not getting the job done. So I would say the biggest need that we're looking at, we need shooting so that we can create spacing around Paolo.
Yeah.
And then if you're just not going to go with the shooting because we got Jet Howard, who we tucked away for an entire year, hopefully we unleash him to this year, then we need to focus on getting a center, like a rebounding center, rim protection.
Right. Kind of like Dallas had in a Derek Lively.
No, man. Don't.
All right, I won't go there. I'm going to bring it up again later, but yeah, I won't go there. I agree with you, man. It's pretty obvious. We need shooting. We need spacing in that respect. And because of Wendell Carter's injuries throughout his career, I don't think he's ever played more than 60, 65 games in a career. You got to account for at least 20 games where you're going to need a really good, almost starting caliber backup big, or maybe just a permanent starting center if Wendell isn't the guy. So that's not happening first year of a guy out of the draft, but is there a guy here that you can get for one of those roles? So the way that I'd like to present this to you, Jay, and we can riff off of this, is since I have not been following, and isn't this nice, Magic fans? Isn't this nice?
It's a great
I'm going to say I have not really been following much pre-draft analysis or any of that, which has been the lifeblood of us Magic fans for the past decade, it feels like.
Almost 10 years. Yeah.
Because we've survived on hope, Jay. We've just been eating little scraps of hope. And maybe this 18-year-old kid who barely has chest hair and ball hair will be the next great thing for the Orlando Magic. But we're out of those times now. We don't need to worry about that. So the way I wanted to do this conversation is I just looked at some of the big outlets and their mock drafts and see what they think the Magic should have and see if we believe in our Orlando Magic expertise, if that's the right thing. And two of the biggest ones, ESPN, right? That's the biggest sports outlet, and Tankathon, very popular, especially for drafts, have us taking Johnny Furphy, who is a freshman from Kansas. Jay, our second cousin at a 6'9" Aussie. He's an Australian, so he's going to love that. Shot 35% from three on pretty much all set shots, though. This guy, as I'm watching highlights, I don't know. I'm not sold on this Johnny Furphy character at all. He looks more like a Boy Scout than a basketball player. Maybe he is a hard worker. And would I have said the same thing about Franz Wagner highlights had I looked at those a few years ago? I didn't even watch Franz Wagner highlights leading up to that draft. But this guy, Johnny Furphy, doesn't seem to be a lot besides what the Magic might like in a large, rangy guy who can do a little bit of everything. But he had a very limited role at Kansas. From what I saw, he doesn't seem to be able to self-create a lot of the shots that he was getting because he was the third guard on the floor or a third option were wide open set shots. When he did become a starter for Kansas on January 13th, he averaged 12.6 points per game, 6.6 boards, 1.3 assists on 38.3% from the beyond the arc. But for me, it just seems like, honestly, another Caleb Houston type of guy, or maybe a more apt comparison because he's from down under is Joe Ingles, although Joe Ingles has way more creation with the ball. So does he have the shit talk game of Ingles as well? If he does, let's sign him up. We need some Australian shit talk. That could be good. But What's your thermostat
That
for Johnny Furphy?
yeah, that Australian shit talk is like now in the blood of what we need as a team. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
We seen enough with Joe Ingles. We want that.
Yeah.
Honestly, bro, like I'm just gonna go with my gut feeling. Kind of the same thing you've mentioned. I'm pretty sure that's kind of the consensus with all Magic fans for the most part. Is we haven't really been watching the draft like that, so I don't know too much about the players in regards to like based on what just the stat line, right? It's in a couple of videos that I could watch beforehand, but
Right.
If we're gonna compare him to like a Caleb Houston or Joe Ingles, I mean, just look at what those two players with the, cutting out the whole thing of like Joe Ingles being the vet, being on like championship teams or whatever, like keeping that out of the, out of the picture, consideration. Like we got Caleb Houston or Joe Ingles, like they don't really do much for us. So I'm not a fan of this at all.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Especially when we need players that can do, that can create for themselves and just kind of be able to be a primary ball handler in a sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's so important to
that
what
spacing.
The offense that Mosley wants to do. He always talks about making the choices. He wants to like put guys in sets and then have them make the right choice. And I just don't know if this kid has had that opportunity yet, and maybe he could develop into it, but I don't know, man. I'm here. Paulo's ready. Like, let's fucking go. I don't know if I need Johnny Furphy sitting around in the G League for like 3 years to then see what he's going to become. So the next guy, do you have anything else on Johnny Furphy? Can we keep it moving?
Nah, right, man, we keep it moving.
Word. So Bleacher Report and The Ringer both have us taking, and I like this way more.
This is the guy.
This is the guy, right? Jared McCain.
If we're doing the draft, this is the guy.
So why do you like him? 6'2" guard from Duke.
I'm just gonna be biased initially. Like I like the Duke guys, right? I like the Paul. I like the Derek Lively. I like the Jason Tatum. Like I like Duke, right?
Yeah.
I don't watch college basketball like that, but we know what Duke brings. They recruit some of the best talent. JJ Redick came from Duke. I like Duke. Beesh would disagree, but
yeah, right, of course, North Carolina.
That being said, I think the big thing with this is we need a guard that can, play decent defense and go through and create shots.
Yeah.
I lost you here.
No, that's okay. He's definitely he's one of the best shooters in the draft. He moves into spacing really well off the ball, which I noticed in watching him. Like, he's smart off the ball. He's always thinking about what gap can I be in to be open to get a shot. The only downside, the criticism I've heard, is that he oftentimes played with two other guards. So he wasn't the on-the-ball guy, and he's somewhat limited in being able to get separation from him on his own. So he doesn't have maybe some of the playmaking chops that you might want in a guard. But considering you have Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner who can get more of that separation and create the weakness in the defense, Jared McCain needs to do what I saw him doing a lot, which is move into space. When he gets the ball, he can be crafty. He can shoot. He's got a nice floater. He has nice touch around the hoop. And he's a smart and willing defender. And he seems like he's got the heart. He seems like he fit in really well with the squad that we have. You can't see it right now, Jay, but I have up some really extended numbers. Someone did a nice graphic at the buzzer. Shout out to them. Off the dribble, 37% from three. Spot up shooting threes, 37%. Off screens, 32%. He shoots almost 90% from free throw line, which is normally a really good indication of a shot that will continue to get better. He's shooting 88.5% from the line. So, I mean, this is the guy that I would like. A little undersized for what Weltman would want, maybe. He loves huge dudes, but 6'2" guard, and again, has that kind of hustle. I think he'd fit in well with the squad, and I would love to see this kid, another Duke guy in a Magic jersey.
Yeah, I feel good about this guy for sure. If we're going to fully participate in the draft, this, in my opinion, this is the guy we need to go for.
and this is only a freshman year, so there's more to grow into there with him. The guy that many Magic fans have been talking about, and there's been a lot of buzz about him, is a fourth-year player from Colorado in Tristan da Silva. Now, this is, again, it depends on what you believe. If you think that we're all set, we've got the pillars, we've got the cornerstone guys in Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero, and we're good to go, we just need pieces, a fourth-year guy makes a lot of sense because he's going to come in more polished, ready to go. But the downside is there's maybe not as much upside. You're drafting a guy who's going to be just a role player at 18, and that's okay. That's okay. It all just kind of depends on what you're looking for. It looks like he has a really smart game, and he's a good shooter. He's developed into a good shooter, at least. By his senior year at Colorado, he shot 39.5% on 4.8 attempts from beyond the arc. He was averaging 16 points, about 50% from the field, and he shot 83.5% from the line. So, I mean, his numbers look good, getting 5 boards, 2.5 assists, and again, a mature player who can immediately be a support role to help us challenge for next year in the playoffs. That can maybe be the guy that helps you get over the hump in the playoffs. The only thing, Jay, is like, hey, I mean, I know Paolo had an all-star year, and that's freaking awesome. But for me, if we're going to take a draft pick, let's get a guy that could become something, become another dog. And yeah, when you get down the line, if Jared McCain develops into, damn, this guy could be a really good point guard, fringe all-star type of guy, then how can we sign him and Jalen Suggs and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner? Well, that's a damn good problem to have. If you've got 4 guys you think are almost on all-stars and all defensive and all these accolades, that's a good problem to have. I don't know if Tristan da Silva has that upside. And so where are you, second cousins out there, with what you're looking for? Are you looking for a higher floor, lower ceiling dude like Tristan da Silva? Or are you looking for a bigger upside guy, maybe a little bit lower of a floor in Jared McCain, who takes some time? And then Johnny Furphy, who we talked about, is probably like highest ceiling, but could be a freaking bust. So where do you land on Tristan da Silva, Jay? Or any of that shit I just said?
Yeah, no, I got you. I was just kind of letting you do your spiel. So obviously we don't have, in a sense, where we're sitting at in the draft this year compared to the last 2 years, it's a little bit more challenging for us to truly be able to kind of gauge what's going to be available there, right? Last year's draft, for example, there were players that we thought for sure were just not going to be there at that, at those picks,
right.
Let's say 18th pick or whatever. And we were surprised with some of the picks that were available. Cam Whitmore, just players that we were like, okay, people thought this player should have been drafted sooner, right? So
yeah, with
not paying attention to the draft, I feel like it's kind of hard to gauge what it is. So I think this Tristan da Silva thing is just maybe like a narrative of like, oh, this might be one of the better player options that are available on that frame where the Magic are going to draft. Not my favorite. I'm going to stick, again, I 100% agree with what you said. If we're going to participate in the draft and utilize our picks, we need to pick a player that we know is going to completely mesh with what we got, and that is McCain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, with the meshing, I think Tristan da Silva, I think he'd mesh well, but, because he seems like a smart player and a good player, but
yeah,
is he,
I see that
is that what you want to do with your 18 pick? What's that?
I see that he likes to cut in a lot, which in a sense is like, I feel like it's just going to clog the paint area for Paolo or even a Franz, where we know Franz's game is cutting in and doing those little floaters and whatnot. So unless he can go around and do that and maybe work on his shot, and be that guy for us, I don't think we need another, person to come in and just be cutting in through the paint all the time.
A little bit too much redundancy for you. I see that.
I think so.
And so if you're not going to go, I guess we've covered a few different sides. We've like Furphy and Tristan da Silva are more wings. Jared McCain would be our number one as a guard. And then I was looking at some of the others, other presses and outlets and what they had us. USA Today had us bringing in Deron Holmes, who is a gentleman, no disrespect to him, but I had never heard of this gentleman playing for the Dayton Flyers. He's a 6'9", 235-pound center. I mean, this was a head scratcher for me because you're talking about you talked about with Tristan da Silva some redundancy. Do we really need another undersized center? I mean, this just screams again. No. Wendell Carter Jr. He's not even pulling down 10 rebounds playing for Dayton and probably playing, Greater Charlottesville Dragons, some team I've never heard of. So this one was ridiculous to me.
I'm looking at like some information on him, like when we were talking about this, and we don't need a versatile big man, right? We need a focused big man on doing what the big man job is supposed to be. I don't need versatility in that position.
Well, let me give you
that's a no-go for me.
Let me offer you a Khalil Ware then, sir. A Khalil Ware, who is the center from Indiana. He's actually in his second year. He was a sophomore for Indiana. He transferred from Oregon. But this is a guy that I would
Through
like.
The portal?
I guess he was in the portal. Yeah, he came out of the portal. I don't know what universe he was in, but yeah, he came through a portal. And, I mean, this is a 7-footer, a true 7-footer, which we don't have, 242. If you're like me, and as I mentioned earlier, and you thought Derek Lively should have been the draft pick for us last year, this guy gives me Derek Lively vibes. He's bouncy. He's a bouncy big. He likes to catch lobs. He can rebound the ball. He averaged 10 boards a game and 16 points, almost 2 blocks. Like, this is more of a rebound rim type of center. What say you on a Khalil Ware? Would you be happier with that option?
Unfortunately, things went the way they did last year, right?
Yeah.
But you said, this would be like his kind of comparison.
Mm-hmm.
My ears started to go up, right?
Okay.
This is the answer and the center position. Give him a shot.
Right.
Why not, right?
Could be.
Like that's ultimately like how I feel about it is obviously he's a rookie. I don't expect him to come in and be like the next Shaq for the Magic or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But if he's going to get in there, make some impact, get around the right guys, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of talk about like if Derek Lively would have had as good of a year as he would have if he didn't get drafted to the team that Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving play on, know. But that being said, I did see kind of like something that like piqued my interest with the Mavericks team was they brought in Tyson Chandler to basically like coach these guys, right? Tyson Chandler was a very well-respected center during his time frame and whatnot. And we don't have that. I mean, we don't have veteran guys like that on our like coaching staff or anything like that can like guide these guys, right? So I would say we should explore that, kind of help develop some of these guys. I like that like whole strategy.
Yeah.
This is the answer.
So I'll tell you a quick story, Jay, because I was at the draft last year when we had the 2 picks. And when we selected Anthony Black, there were some folks around you that you're having conversations with. And I had told them, we need a guard and a big. So when we got the guard, I'm like, all right, next one's going to be the big. Right before the pick, I'm like, all right, here it comes, Derek Lively Jr. Come on, give him to me. And then it was Jet Howard. And I was kind of deflated in that. And the people around me, guy behind me was a Bulls fan. He has no right to talk, but he's like, what the hell are they thinking? But it was an odd decision. And you're right. Derek Lively, would he have had as good a year with the Magic? No. Heck no, dude. He was catching lobs from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Those guys are masters with that type of stuff. Our player, Paulo and Franz, we have not seen in their repertoire like throwing lobs to each other. That's not really the floater game. It's not like Trae Young out there who's the lob master or anything like that. So I think some of that is very valid that Derek Lively wouldn't have had as good of a year if he had been with the Magic. But still, I think Khalil Ware can bring some of the things that we've been lacking at times, which is that rim presence, that rebounding, that tenacity in the paint. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens with these. And if we don't get, use this draft pick, or if we don't get a big in a draft or a guard in the draft, we have to then look to trades and free agency. So we're going to transition now into talking about some of the trades and free agency. Let us know if we missed any draft stuff, any people that you really like. I know some people are crazy about the guard from USC and some of these other guards that are out there. Let us know who you're feeling, second cousins, in the comments. And let's now talk about the biggest piece of news, Jay, that had many a Magic fan, including our boys over at Orlando Magic HQ, very sad, was a Woj bomb that Malik Monk intends to sign a 4-year, $78 million deal, including a player option, to return to Sacramento. Orlando Magic HQ reacted, ouch, broken heart. First of all, what was your reaction? Because this was one of the big targets. Were you as high on Malik Monk? Was this your dude, Jay? And how are you feeling when you saw that?
So this is my reaction.
Yeah.
Malik Monk, what we doing? What we doing, man? You know you were supposed to come to Orlando. You're not going to get a chip with Domantas Sabonis? Listen, it's funny, man. I'm not like super high on him.
Right.
I understand. I think like price point versus what you get is what made him so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Sixth man of the year contending, like talks and all this stuff and whatnot. Like, I think that's ultimately like what made him valuable, right? He can get you 15 points a game and secure stat lines or whatever. I'm happy for him.
Right.
I've been to Sacramento. Sacramento sucks. It's not that great of a place to live at. So you didn't want to come to Florida. That's on you.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, especially like, I don't know. And maybe the hype is just everything for us fans, but 4 years, 78. I don't know. I thought he was going to get into the 20 million range personally. I thought he was going to be making 20 a year as a six man.
He just probably doesn't have a good agent.
I don't know, man, because like this will work out. I mean, it's pretty much 20 a year. It's probably like 19 a year. Yeah, a little over 19 a year. So it is pretty much 20 a year, and he wants a player option on there. So maybe the Magic didn't want to give him that, but I think it is a bummer because Malik Monk would have brought a lot of the things that you needed, but we can't dwell on that, man, because there's no use in crying over spilt milk. So we got to look at some of these other free agents and restricted free agents that are still available, but there's not a lot on the market, and that's why Malik Monk was so sought after by Magic fans. I mean, the other big name now that we have out here is D'Angelo Russell. And the Magician was a good follow here on Twitter, says, with Monk off the board, there's one player in that price range who gives the Magic the table setter who can also space the floor as Paulo wanted. And what the Magician is alluding to is a quote that Paulo Banchero did, an interview he did with, I think it was like the Washington Post or something, where he said that he would rather be an offensive hub rather than a point guard, if that makes sense. So I think what Paulo's frustration has been, and rightly so, is I want to be the offensive cat, but I don't want to have to dribble the ball up the floor and play make and pass and do freaking everything, man. Just get me some help, Weltman. Bring me a guy who can bring the ball up and be a threat, and then get me the ball in a place where I can do the most damage, which is, right at the top of the key there, where he can work and get downhill on some guys without having double and triple teams. And D'Angelo Russell, for the Magician, might fit that mold. He's become a really good shooter. He's obviously a threat in that way. He does some playmaking, some nice things. He's going to cost you around $20 million a year. What say you to a D'Angelo Russell, Jay?
So to make a more educated kind of opinion, I just looked up the salary costs. We can
Yep.
talk about the two other guys that are kind of tied to us in free agency after this, but those two other guys are going to cost us in the upwards of
Who you talking about?
35 to 40 million a year. We'll talk about it in a second.
Okay.
I want
Oh,
to
you want to hold it? He's
give
teasing everyone. Look at
I
this.
want to
He's
get
teasing you.
I want to give D'Angelo his spot.
Okay.
So I'm a fan of D'Angelo,
Yeah.
right? I understand he's got certain things where he, some people might not want him or have him as a favorite or whatever, but I mean, every team that he's been a part of, whether it was the Lakers, whether it was the Timberwolves, whether, he has made an impact. He has done his job. He does what he needs to do. And at 20 million a year, um depending on what the plan is for the rest of the money that we have available, and keeping in mind that we need to have spacing and just cap open for the guys that we got to sign next year,
Mm-hmm.
in Franz and Suggs, like I'm a fan. I'm okay with that. If we don't do anything else,
Yeah.
at least pick up D'Angelo Russell. If he's willing to come out here for 20 mil a year, give him the 20 mil for the 2 years. Let us, develop, our picks and figure out what we're going to do with the players that we got. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's never really. Let's see here. Russell, where are you? Here he is. He averaged 18 points, 3 boards, and 6 assists last year. So I'd be down to add that. And like you said, man, like this is the last season that the Magic really have an opportunity to kind of play with what could be considered free money, because after this, the transactions, everything is going to be over the salary cap soon. And that's when you got to be really smart about your transactions. You can re-sign guys to go over the first apron and second apron if you have their bird rights. Like if they're on your team, you can re-sign them. The NBA wants to allow you to do that. But where you get more restricted is being able to sign free agents and being able to take back money in trades. So if it really behooves the Magic, even if it's a little bit more above 20 million, if you have to pay a little bit more than you'd want for D'Angelo Russell, maybe like 23, 24 for a couple of years and a third-year team option, that's okay, because a 20-something million contract is a nice number to be able to send out, and then you can bring that money back. Where you start to get penalized on these second aprons and the first aprons is you're only allowed to bring back the money you send out. You can't bring back more once you've gone over them. So it actually makes sense to have some of these contracts where you can send out that money and then bring back a player of equal value. And when you think about, bringing a Rashard Lewis type of player in, who's a really high caliber player, he was the player that put that, 05 to 09 team over the top. That's going to cost you like $20 to $26 million. So we need a guy on the books that we could move potentially just for salary cap. So like you said, man, I'm all for bringing a guy like D'Angelo Russell in. We've already been talking here for 34 minutes. You teased a couple guys. Who you teasing me with? Don't tease me anymore, Jay. I can't take it.
Well, so, okay, I mean, there's only been 2 guys that we haven't even mentioned, which are like literally the biggest name drops.
Right.
You got
conversations
happening for Paul George, conversations happening for Klay Thompson.
Yes.
What's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on those?
I think Paul George is completely unrealistic. I don't think Steve Ballmer,
Why?
The Clippers owner, he's building a new stadium. He's got money out the ass. He didn't do this. He's very involved in his team. He's very out front. He's not going to let Paul George walk. He will go above the second apron. He will pay out of his Microsoft money so much. I mean, he'll take a hit. He wants his team to be good and relevant, and they're building a new stadium. He's not letting Paul George walk. I think that's completely unrealistic. But, and I think we're being used as leverage. I think we're still being used as leverage in the Klay Thompson situation. But I don't know if that's realistic either. Does he really, the murmurings, the recent murmurings that we've heard from, Jake Fisher from Yahoo Sports, who tends to have a really good beat on the Orlando Magic more than any other reporter I've seen, is that the Magic would offer Klay Thompson some kind of balloon 2-year deal that would be in the 20s of millions. But does Klay want to walk away from his dynasty partners from the Golden State Warriors? I know they're all aging, for
I was
2
gonna say,
years?
that's done.
Like, wouldn't you just rather take a little less money and stay with your boys and ride off in the sunset as a Golden State Warrior, Klay Thompson? I mean, I know he turned down an offer quite a while ago, but I just find both of those a little exaggerated and unrealistic, if I'm being honest.
So, all right, I'm going to combat what you just said.
Oh, I like it. Yeah,
So,
let's do it.
yeah. So, and to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of overpaying or giving Klay Thompson a deal larger than 3 years, right?
Yeah.
That being said, if you're Klay Thompson, you're always going to be in the shadow of Steph Curry,
Yeah.
right? Now we're getting into like the psychological aspect of things. He already did what he needs to do. That dynasty is done.
Yeah.
Golden State Warriors are never going to go back to the finals in under Steph Curry's like watch, Draymond Green, all those guys. Those guys need to,
Move on.
Steph Curry's probably going to stick around there, whatever. I don't know,
Mhm.
but my point is, if I'm Klay Thompson, I'm going to go somewhere where my fans aren't bashing me because I had a rough year, right? If I've been there my entire NBA career, I want a little bit of change. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So if I'm Klay Thompson, I'm going to entertain. Maybe we're being used as leverage. It's part of the game, but personally, I think if I'm Klay Thompson, I'm entertaining the actual conversation. Oh, and I just remembered what happened to the Trae Young talks.
Yeah, well, that's a trade. That's a whole different thing. If we're talking about free agents, I mean, names that we haven't mentioned that are still out there that are sexy, perhaps to Magic fans, not as sexy to the rest of the NBA. A guy like Gary Trent Jr., who's a really solid shooter who would be, kind of replace the Gary Harris role. That would probably be, and he's 25 years old. He's more on the timeline of the Magic, a younger player. So I would love to see a Gary Trent Jr. signing, but that doesn't solve. Look, hey, my number one focus, if I'm Weltman and Parker, is addressing that quotation that I brought up from Paulo Banchero with that frustration. I want to be the hub of the offense, but I don't want to be the point guard. All right, so you better get a fucking point guard, man. Like, I don't want any of this. I mean, it's going to be the Godzilla situation. This was a post from Orlando Magic Guru, who said the Orlando Magic are staying put in free agency and have a chance to evaluate things, what they have on the roster. Like, if we hear that quote, I'm going to be fucking pissed because your star told you he wants a point guard. You have to get him a point guard, whether it's Jared McCain in the draft and you're like, hey, this is going to be the guy, or you get it in a guy like Tyus Jones, who isn't sexy but doesn't turn the ball over, can bring the ball up the floor, can shoot a little. Like, I would love Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is my wet dream of an off-season signing. And I know it's not like super sexy like a D'Angelo Russell, like even a Malik Monk maybe to some people, but that's the guy for me. You need a point guard. I'm really about this internal development. I don't know if I'm about it to the level of Jeff Weltman, where he says, I think we have the shooting on the team. I don't know if that's true quite yet, but I do believe in Jalen Suggs developing in a shooter. Franz, I think that shot's going to come back. I think last year was an anomaly as opposed to what we've seen from him before. Paulo became a better shooter.
I hope so.
I think that we're not going to be bottom of the barrel shooting forever, I don't think. But we do need a point guard, man. Something needs to happen this year. It can't be to re-sign Joe Ingles and to re-sign Moritz and just run it back. That is not going to be acceptable. We need to bring in some contracts, like we said, that are good, that we might have guys that we want to re-sign on those contracts moving forward and therefore can go over the salary cap and the aprons, or bring in some guys that we can sign that could be good trade chips as well. So we need to do something. I would be pissed, and I'd feel like Godzilla getting shot by missiles if that's the quote, that we are staying put in free agency. That would kind of suck, I think.
I agree, man. Please, listen, we want some action.
Yeah.
Right? We want to be in the talks.
Yeah. I'm just like a 21-year-old boy out at the bar just hoping someone will play with me. I need some action.
Pause.
No, it was play. I wanted to play that. That's exactly what I intended. It was a sexual joke, yes. One more. Well, what do you think about Goga? Because that's the last post we have here. Unless,
Some of the better games that we had, Goga started. I know it's
yeah.
a conflicting statement. I know a lot of people feel some type of whatever because listen, all right, here this is man, you had to get me to go there. We're gonna end off on this note. Listen, if you as a basketball player start sitting for like 20 games in a row, of course, when you
Yeah.
come back, you are going to be rusty. You're going to be tired because you're not conditioned to play for the freaking 40 minutes or whatever it is, 48 minutes that they play. So
Yeah.
you guys cannot judge Goga for having a rough end of the season when freaking coaching staff didn't decide to play him. We used him when Wendell was out because we had no other choice. And then you disrespect him by sending him to the back of the line when Wendell comes back.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of that, but with that being said, and I'm not super high on Goga, but like you got to give the man his props. We had the man created for us. He did, he did a lot of good defense, playmaking. Like he did it for us when we had him starting. So if we don't tackle the draft as a center, if we pick up McCain, let's just say like that, and we bring like a D'Angelo Russell on board or something, we better be trading Wendell Carter and picking up some other center, in my opinion. If not, just do him right. Maybe trade him to the Indiana Pacers. They had a good offseason run. Maybe give him back to.
He's not. He's an unrestricted free agent.
So he could do whatever he wants.
He could do whatever the fuck he wants. Yeah, we do. We didn't. I think we picked up the second year on the option on the previous contract, but he is an unrestricted free agent. This would just be about trying to re-sign him, and yeah, your point was hilarious about. If you go out on a 20 games and you're out for 20 games, I thought the point you were going to make was, and then your team goes on a 15-game winning streak or whatever. That might be a sign that the guy that replaced you is actually pretty freaking good.
Well, so I went off on the other side of things where when they sat him,
they did disrespect him.
He came back. That's jacked up, man.
It was messed up, but I think overall the goodwill. I think Goga has goodwill towards the Magic because the Pacers really sent him out and were like, we're done with you.
We're like, yeah.
And so we took him on and gave him an opportunity to show what he can do. And now with this post from Evan Sidery, there's I don't know where he's getting this from, but the Clippers, Heat, Kings, Knicks, Mavericks, Pelicans, and Spurs are all teams expected to show interest in Bitadze. So, now there's competition. I would love to bring Goga back as a part of that center rotation, even if you drafted Jaleel Ware, who we talked about, just to have him. I just love Goga. I think he has a good energy. I think he was just fantastic.
I like him.
He would probably be, if we did draft a center like Jaleel Ware, he would probably be the third guy. Like it'd probably be Wendell, Goga, and then him. But, we like to play Moritz too, and Moritz has a team option. And so are we going to pick that option up? It's interesting to see. I have a question for you. I'm interested to hear what you say on this.
Yeah.
Joe Ingles, right? He's got an $11 million team option for next year. Would you prefer to have Joe Ingles or sign previous Magic Tobias Harris to the same contract as the backup, as like a backup 3-4?
This is strictly off of energy.
Yeah.
Right? Strictly off of energy, age, and just kind of like the impact that I believe they could have to the team.
Mm-hmm.
As long as the attitude is proper, I'm signing Tobias Harris back.
You like him more just kind of like the scoring upside. He can have games where he can get 20.
Yes.
Yeah. And that used to be Joe Ingles, but we didn't see that from him.
We did not.
No.
And I don't need somebody starting picking fights. And I mean, it's great for entertainment, right? Mm-hmm. But we're trying to win. We're not. The Magic are no longer in the business of entertaining fans. we are in the business of trying to get wins. Hopefully, Jeff Weltman and Anthony Parker's vision aligns with that. Um, I'm signing Tobias Harris over Joe Ingles.
And there's we kind of, we talked about the Malik Monk thing earlier, and that sent off some alarm bells in the Magic community. A lot of people on Twitter were upset about it, but I'm looking down this list, and there are other guys that would be interesting for this team. We talked about Gary Trent Jr. Being there. Kelly Oubre Jr. is an unrestricted free agent. I know he's a bit of a diva, but 28 years old. If he's okay he might not be okay coming off the bench. But even if you just put him at the 2, like instead of Gary Harris having that big 2 guard and Kelly Oubre, who could, like, he dropped 30 last year. Like, that's interesting to me. Jonas Valanciunas as a center option. That's interesting.
I like that.
He's older, right? 32. He's not going to be a long contract, but if you get him in, that would be interesting to me, a more offensive-minded. I mean, Jonas is a good center, man. Buddy Hield, who did get traded to the 76ers last year, and they probably have an agreement, but he's an unrestricted free agent right now. He was great until he disappeared. Nick Claxton as another big from Brooklyn, 25 years old, would fit more in line with the timeline. It all depends on how you feel about Wendell Carter Jr., really, when we're talking about Nick Claxton, Jonas Valanciunas. Malik Beasley as a guard option, Luke Kennard as a shooter. These are all unrestricted free agents. So there's still hope out there, but I don't know. If they don't do anything, I am going to be a little infuriated, Jay.
I agree. I will be as well. And then we can argue and conversate and all that together. But
about what we did.
Yeah. I'm just looking through the list real quick. I see the Knicks picking back up Isaiah Hartenstein.
Right. That would be another good option.
There's a lot of talk that they're potentially trying to put Mitchell Robinson on the market. People, I don't know if that's necessarily a good move. His value is not 100% where it should be because of his injury-prone status. I'm just looking.
I like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the former
KCP's
world champions. He's 31, but he would be nice to have as that Gary Harris position instead, and that veteran leadership, because he fits in really well with the defensive mindset of this team. That would be a fantastic player to have. I loved Jalen Smith, the center. He played for the Pacers. He used to play for the Suns. I've been talking about this. If you're a listener of the podcast, you remember a couple of years ago I was pounding the drum for Jalen Smith to get him in here. He's an unrestricted free agent. There are a lot of good options, so I don't think it's time yet. Lonnie Walker Jr. is an unrestricted free agent. He can score for as a guard. There are some options here, so it's not time to get forlorn as we go into the draft, and it's an exciting time to be an Orlando Magic fan. Jay, can we have another conversation after the draft, see what we do, and see how we're feeling?
As long as we pick up Kyle Lowry, I'll have that conversation with you.
As long as we pick up Kyle Lowry?
I saw that name on there. I said, let me.
Oh my God, Magic fans, we would riot. We would riot in the streets. All right, Jay, thanks so much, homie, for hopping on. It's been a good one. Let us know how you're feeling, second cousins, as we go into this draft. We'll see you next time. Peace out, Jay.
See you guys. Let's get it.